My name is Linda. I'm 63 years old, married to Frank for more than 4 decades. We still live in the brick house we built together, the same house where our children grew up. It's quiet now, except when the grandchildren visit. Frank is steady, the kind of man who believes problems should be solved calmly. I'm the opposite. My patience runs deep, but when it snaps clean. We have 3 children. Michael, the middle child, keeps to himself. Anna, the youngest, still calls me twice a week. And then there is Rebecca, the eldest. She's smart, successful, and has always carried herself like the leader of the siblings. People admire her confidence, but in the family, it often comes across as control. For years, Rebecca has tried to position herself as the voice of reason, the organizer, the problem solver. But more often, it feels like she's speaking for everyone, even when no one asked her to. At first, I let it go. After all, she's my daughter. I wanted to believe her sharp tongue came from stress, not malice. But lately, her words have taken a different tone. There's an edge in her voice when she talks to me, a coldness when she corrects me in front of others. Frank notices, though he tries to downplay it. She's under pressure at work, he'll say, or that's just how Rebecca shows she cares. But mothers know, and I know this isn't care, it's something else. The first crack appeared at a Sunday dinner. I had forgotten to add salt to the mashed potatoes, and Rebecca, with a laugh that wasn't really a laugh, said, "See, this is why we need to start rotating who cooks. Mom's not as sharp as she used to be." Everyone chuckled politely. I forced a smile, but the sting stayed. It wasn't about the food, it was about the way she looked at me like I was a problem to manage. From then on, little comments started piling up. "Mom, you already told that story. Twice. Are you sure you paid that bill? Maybe Frank should handle the details now." Each word chipped away, not only at my dignity, but at how others saw me. I could feel it. Michael hesitated before asking me for advice. Anna looked uncomfortable, caught between me and her sister. Even Grace, my granddaughter, seemed to sense the tension. Rebecca was building something. Slowly, subtly, a narrative where I was no longer capable, no longer reliable, no longer fit to be the mother at the center of this family. And she was just getting started. It was Anna's birthday. She wanted a simple dinner at my house, roast chicken, salad, and a cake from the local bakery. Nothing fancy, just family. By 6 o'clock, everyone had arrived. The dining table was full. Frank carving meat, Michael pouring drinks, Grace snapping pictures on her phone. For a moment, it felt almost normal. Then Rebecca spoke. "Mom," she said loudly, "why don't you sit down and let me handle serving? You look tired." "I'm fine," I answered, passing her the salad bowl. She didn't take it. Instead, she turned to the others. "She's been forgetting things lately. I caught her almost putting raw chicken back in the fridge last week." The table went quiet. Michael frowned. "Rebecca, no, it's true," she continued. "I'm worried about her. We need to talk about how to make sure she's safe. Dad can't watch everything." Frank's knife hit the cutting board harder than necessary. "She's not unsafe, Becca. She's capable." Rebecca smiled politely, but her eyes stayed on me. "Of course, but we can't ignore the signs." I felt the heat rise in my face. One mistake doesn't mean I'm falling apart. "Mom," Rebecca said, her voice dripping with patience, "it's not one mistake, it's patterns. You repeat stories, you misplace bills, you leave the stove on." "That's enough," Frank cut in. But Rebecca had already shifted the atmosphere. Everyone looked uneasy. Even Anna, the guest of honor, glanced at her plate instead of me. Grace, sitting beside me, whispered softly, "Grandma, don't listen." I squeezed her hand under the table, but the damage was done. Rebecca had planted her seed, and she'd done it in front of the whole family. The rest of dinner limped along. Conversation felt forced. Laughter sounded strained. Rebecca kept the spotlight on my mistakes, slipping them into casual comments. "Remember when Mom almost missed Michael's graduation because she got the time wrong? She thought she paid the gas bill twice last month. Luckily, I caught it." Each jab was disguised as concern, but everyone heard the undertone. She wasn't just sharing memories. She was building a case. By the time we cut the cake, I wasn't celebrating Anna anymore. I was sitting in judgment, silent while Rebecca played prosecutor. When the plates were cleared, she stood and addressed the room like a board meeting. "We need to think long term," she said. Mom can't keep doing everything on her own. I'll put together a plan so we're ready. I wanted to shout, to slam my hands on the table, but I didn't. I smiled, lifted my glass, and said to Anna, "Happy birthday, darling." Because sometimes silence is not surrender, it's strategy. That night, lying in bed, Frank whispered, "She went too far." "Yes," I said. "What are you going to do?" I stared at the ceiling. "Wait, watch. Let her think she's winning." Because the thing Rebecca never learned is this: I don't fight when provoked. I fight when the moment matters. And the moment was coming. The following week, Rebecca called a family check-in over video chat. She framed it as casual, but the agenda was obvious. When the screen lit up, I saw all three children in their little boxes, Rebecca in her office, Michael in his car, Anna at her kitchen table. Frank sat beside me. Grace was in the background listening. Rebecca started smoothly. "Thanks for making time, everyone. I think we need to discuss Mom's situation." "My situation?" I asked. She gave a tight smile. "Don't be defensive, Mom. We're just concerned. Last week proved there are patterns we can't ignore." Michael rubbed his forehead. "Becca, maybe this isn't the best way." "No, it has to be addressed." Rebecca cut him off. "Mom, you left the oven on again yesterday." I sat up. The chicken was still roasting. Frank turned it off after dinner. Rebecca's eyebrows lifted as if she'd caught me in a lie. "So you forgot?" "No," I said firmly. "It was intentional." Anna finally spoke. "Rebecca, can we not make this sound like a trial? Mom's fine." Rebecca leaned closer to her camera. "Anna, you don't see what I see. Bills misplaced, duplicate grocery purchases. She's slipping." Frank interjected. "She manages this house, always has. If something slips, we fix it." Rebecca sighed. "Dad, denial doesn't help. What happens when she forgets something serious? Gas, medications, a fire?" Grace's voice piped up from the side. "Grandma's careful. She checks everything twice. She checks me twice." Rebecca blinked, surprised at the interruption. "Sweetheart, I know you want to defend her, but adults see things differently." Grace crossed her arms. "I see enough." Silence spread across the call. Michael coughed. Anna muttered something about overreacting, but Rebecca pressed on. "I'm putting together a list," she said. "Tasks Mom should hand off. Grocery shopping, bill payments, driving at night. We'll split the load." "I didn't agree to that," I said. "You don't have to," Rebecca replied calmly. "We're doing this for your own good." Frank's jaw tightened. "She's not your patient." Rebecca's voice softened, rehearsed. "She's my mother, and protecting her is my responsibility." I leaned forward, meeting her eyes through the screen. "No, Rebecca. Loving me is your responsibility. Respecting me is your responsibility. Protection is not yours to seize." The silence after that line was different. Charged, uncomfortable. Even Michael looked shaken. But Rebecca just nodded, lips pressed tight. "We'll revisit this," she said, and ended the call. Frank turned to me. "She won't stop." "I know," I said. Grace put her hand on mine. "Grandma, I believe you." That was when I realized something important. Rebecca wanted control, but I wasn't alone, not entirely. It was Sunday dinner again, but this time Rebecca arrived with a folder in her hand. That alone made Frank tense. He knew what was coming. She waited until the plates were cleared, then laid the folder flat on the table like evidence in court. "I've kept track of things," she said, looking at everyone but me. "Mom's lapses, dates, times, details." "Lapses?" I asked, my voice low. Rebecca ignored me. She pulled out a sheet. February 12th, Mom left the back door unlocked overnight. March 3rd, nearly paid the same utility bill twice. March 18th, called me thinking it was Wednesday when it was Saturday. Anna frowned. "Rebecca?" "This isn't exaggeration," Rebecca cut in. "I wrote everything down." Michael shifted uncomfortably. "Becca, everybody forgets things." "Not like this," she snapped. "It's accelerating." Frank's hand closed around mine under the table. "This is absurd," he said. "You're turning small mistakes into a diagnosis." Rebecca met his eyes. "Dad, you can't cover for her forever. You might not see it, but I do. I live in the real world, and the real world doesn't care about denial. If Mom gets behind the wheel one night and forgets the stop sign, who pays the price? I forced myself to speak calmly. Rebecca, you're twisting everything. One unlocked door, one wrong date, that's your case? Her smile was razor thin. Mom, you don't even realize how serious it is. Anna looked torn. Becca, I think you're pushing too hard. Rebecca spread her arms. Why is it wrong to want our mother safe? Why is it wrong to prepare before something terrible happens? Grace slammed her small hand on the table. Everyone turned. Her voice shook, but it carried. Grandma isn't broken. Stop talking like she is. Rebecca's face hardened. Grace, this isn't for children. No, Grace said, chin lifted. You're the one acting like a bully. The words hung there. Frank almost smiled. But the room was too tense. Rebecca gathered her papers. Fine. If no one listens now, they'll listen later. But remember, I tried. She pushed back her chair, the scrape loud against the floor. This family has a choice. Pretend nothing's happening or accept reality before it's too late. I won't sit by and watch Mom fall apart. Michael stayed silent. Anna rubbed her temples. Grace held on to me. Frank finally spoke, his voice steel. You're not saving this family, Rebecca. You're tearing it apart. Rebecca's eyes flicked to me one last time. Cold, calculated. History will prove me right. Then she walked out. The door slammed, and with it, I knew. This wasn't concern. It was war. 2 weeks later, Rebecca called for a family meeting. She didn't ask if I agreed. She announced it, and everyone came. We gathered in the living room. Frank sat beside me, jaw tight. Anna perched nervously on the edge of her chair. Michael leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Grace hovered near the hallway, listening though Rebecca tried to shoo her away. Rebecca stood in the center, holding a stack of papers. Again. Thank you for being here, she began like a manager addressing employees. We need to make decisions about Mom's well-being before something irreversible happens. I opened my mouth, but she raised her hand. Please, Mom, just listen. She paced slowly. In the last month, there have been 5 separate incidents, missed payments, confusion over dates, repeated stories. Forgetting where items were placed, these aren't minor anymore, they're a pattern. Anna murmured, Becca. Rebecca snapped her gaze to her sister. I know you don't want to face this, but ignoring it won't make it go away. Michael cleared his throat. What exactly are you suggesting? Rebecca's eyes softened, fake sympathy. That we begin transitioning responsibilities. Bills, household tasks, driving. Dad can't handle it all forever. Frank's voice cut through. I don't need you telling me what I can handle. Rebecca didn't flinch. Dad, you love her, that's clear. But love doesn't prevent mistakes. Love doesn't stop accidents. We can't afford to wait. Then she turned to me. Mom, this isn't punishment, it's protection. We all see it. You need help. I swallowed hard. What I need is respect. I am not incompetent. Rebecca's smile sharpened. Then explain the bills, the oven, the duplicate groceries. Explain why you keep repeating stories. Heat surged through me. Because I'm human. Humans forget. Humans repeat. Not like this, she pressed. You're in denial. Anna whispered, maybe we should slow down. But Rebecca had momentum. No, Anna, this is too important. Look around. Do any of you really believe Mom can keep managing alone? Be honest. The silence that followed was suffocating. Michael looked at the floor. Anna twisted her ring. Even Frank hesitated, searching for words. My chest tightened. For a second, I felt utterly alone. My own children doubting me. My authority crumbling in the house I built. Rebecca's voice softened again, false compassion dripping from every word. Mom, please, let us take care of you. Before it's too late. I wanted to scream, to stand, to tear those papers out of her hand, but my throat closed. And in that silence, Rebecca looked victorious. Then, Grace stepped into the room. Her small voice sliced through the tension. You're lying. Everyone turned. Grace's eyes blazed. You twist things to make Grandma look weak, but she isn't. She helps me with homework. She never forgets me. You just want control. Rebecca's mask cracked for the first time. Grace, go upstairs. No, Grace said firmly. If no one else will say it, I will. You're the one making mistakes, Aunt Rebecca. Big ones. The room froze. For the first time, I saw Rebecca falter, just for a moment. But she recovered quickly, smiling thinly. She's a child. She doesn't understand. Maybe she thought she'd won again. But something shifted that night. Grace had spoken the truth out loud, and truth has a way of lingering, even in silence. The house was quiet the next morning, but my head was loud, every word from Rebecca echoing like a gavel. Frank poured coffee and said softly, "She's building a case, Linda, a real one." I nodded, staring at the steam. "Then I'll tear it apart." That afternoon, while sorting through the mail, I noticed something odd: two gas bills. One marked past due, the other paid in full. But I remembered writing that check. I pulled out my checkbook. Sure enough, the number matched. Someone had duplicated it. I dug deeper, pulling out the folder where I kept statements. That's when I found it. Bills moved out of order, some missing. Notes written in my handwriting, except they weren't. My loops were rounder. These were sharp, angular. Rebecca had forged them. My pulse hammered. That night, I whispered to Frank, "She's not documenting mistakes. She's making them." He looked at me, stunned. "You're sure?" I held up the mismatched notes. "Compare, this isn't mine." We sat in silence, the weight of betrayal heavy in the air. The next day, Grace bounded in from school, tossing her backpack on the couch. "Grandma, Aunt Rebecca told Dad you left the door open again?" I froze. "When?" "Yesterday. She said you forgot to lock it." But yesterday I'd been home all day, with Grace, and I remembered locking it twice because she'd asked, "Why do you always check twice, Grandma?" My stomach clenched. Rebecca wasn't just collecting evidence, she was inventing it. I took Grace's hand. "Sweetheart, can you do something for me? Next time you see me check the door, remember it, tell me later." Grace nodded fiercely. "I'll be your witness." That night I searched deeper. In the drawer where I kept receipts, several had Rebecca's handwriting. She had highlighted items: duplicate milk, duplicate bread, as if I'd bought them twice. But the receipts were weeks apart, normal shopping. She had framed them to look careless. I whispered to Frank, "She's staging everything to make me look unfit." He put his arm around me. "Then we fight with facts, quietly." I nodded, determination hardening in my chest. Rebecca thought she was clever, but she had underestimated me. I'd lived through harder storms than her schemes, and if she wanted war, I was ready. I didn't announce my plan. I learned long ago, real strength is quiet until it needs to roar. The first step was simple: gather witnesses. "Grace," I said one evening, "remember what we talked about, watching the door?" She nodded. "You locked it, twice." "I'll never forget." I kissed her forehead. "Good girl. One day your memory will matter more than you think." The second step: evidence. I pulled out the forged notes Rebecca had written and took them to Pastor Mark. He had known me for decades. He'd seen my handwriting on countless volunteer rosters. He studied the papers, brows furrowed. "This isn't you, Linda. Not even close." "Would you put that in writing?" I asked. Without hesitation, he signed a statement. The third step: test Rebecca's confidence. At the next Sunday dinner, I brought a small notebook. When Rebecca began her usual performance, "Mom repeated herself twice this morning." I wrote it down in front of everyone. "What are you doing?" she asked sharply. "Keeping my own records," I said calmly. "Two can play that game." Frank smirked. Grace beamed. Anna and Michael looked uneasy. Rebecca's face flushed, but she said nothing. Meanwhile, Frank quietly called an old family friend, Carol, who worked at the utility office. Within days, she confirmed what I suspected. Rebecca had accessed my account, claiming she was helping me. She'd requested duplicate statements. Proof. The real turning point came a week later. I set the stage, invited everyone for dinner. Rebecca arrived confident, folder in hand. Halfway through the meal, she started again. "Mom left the oven on last night. I caught it." I set down my fork. "That's a lie." The table froze. Rebecca blinked. "Excuse me." "Grace," I said gently, "tell them where you were last night." Grace sat straighter. "I was here. Grandma turned the oven off. I watched her." Rebecca scoffed. "She's a child." "Then maybe the adults should weigh in," I interrupted, sliding Pastor Mark's signed letter across the table. That handwriting you've been showing around? Not mine. Michael picked it up, eyes narrowing. Anna leaned closer, and then Frank delivered the final blow. He pulled out Carol's statement. You accessed your mother's accounts without permission. You staged bills. That's fraud, Rebecca. The silence was deafening. Rebecca's face drained of color. I was trying to help. No, I said firmly. You were trying to erase me. For the first time, the family looked at her, not me, with suspicion. It wasn't victory yet, but it was the first crack in her armor, and I knew exactly where to strike next. I knew Rebecca wouldn't stop just because I caught her once. People like her double down, so I set a trap. The plan was simple: bait her with something she couldn't resist, an opportunity to prove me incompetent. One Tuesday morning, I called the children. Family dinner this Friday. I'll handle everything, just like old times. Anna sounded relieved. Michael hesitated but agreed. Rebecca? Her voice carried that sharp edge. Are you sure you can manage, Mom? I smiled into the phone. Of course. What she didn't know was that Frank and I had already prepared. Grace, too. Friday came. The house smelled of roast beef and fresh bread. The table was set perfectly. But before anyone arrived, I quietly swapped the main oven's breaker switch off. When I tried to turn it on later, it wouldn't heat. I wanted Rebecca to notice, to jump, to claim her proof. Sure enough, halfway through dinner, she sniffed the air. Mom, did you even cook the roast? It's raw in the oven. Everyone froze. Michael frowned. It tasted fine to me. Rebecca stood, yanked open the oven door, and pointed. Cold. She didn't even turn it on. This is exactly what I've been warning about. Her voice rose, triumphant, certain. That was my cue. I calmly walked to the breaker box in the hallway, flipped the switch back on, and returned with a small smile. The oven hummed to life. Rebecca blinked, confused. What? Frank spoke firmly. You just accused your mother of forgetting, but she didn't forget. She planned this. I held up the notebook. I documented every step. And Grace? Tell them what you saw. Grace grinned. Grandma checked the oven twice before dinner. She even showed me. Anna gasped. Michael shook his head slowly. Rebecca's face reddened. You set me up. Yes, I said, my voice steady, because you've been setting me up for months. The room went silent. Everyone's eyes shifted from me to her, and for the first time she had no defense. She sputtered. I was only trying to protect. No, Frank cut her off. You were trying to control, and tonight, you showed us all. Rebecca sat down hard, lips pressed thin, fury flashing in her eyes. But the damage was done. The family had seen the truth, and I had just begun. The trap worked, but I knew Rebecca wouldn't retreat quietly. Pride never dies softly. 2 days later, she stormed into my kitchen unannounced. Her heels clicked like hammers on the tile. You humiliated me, she hissed. Frank looked up from his paper. You did that yourself. Rebecca ignored him. She jabbed a finger at me. Do you realize what you've done? You've turned everyone against me. I stood calmly. No, Rebecca, you did that. I just stopped letting you rewrite the story. Her laugh was sharp, brittle. They'll regret siding with you. You're slipping, Mom. It's only a matter of time before you really forget something important. Grace appeared in the doorway. She doesn't forget me. Rebecca spun on her. Stay out of this. Grace flinched but held her ground. You're the one who forgets. You forget she's your mom. Rebecca's face twisted, words forming but catching in her throat. She grabbed her purse and stormed out, slamming the door so hard the frame rattled. That night, Michael called. His voice was weary. Mom, I think Becca's, not well. She's unraveling. Anna echoed it later. I can't defend her anymore. She's crossed too many lines. Even Frank, usually calm, muttered, she's on a path to destroy herself. The next Sunday, Rebecca showed up at dinner again, but this time, she didn't bring folders or accusations. She brought venom. She raised her glass of water, eyes glinting. Here's to a mother who plays games with her children, to a father who enables, to siblings too blind to see the truth, and to a granddaughter who doesn't know when to keep her mouth shut. The silence was thick. Anna set her fork down. Enough, Rebecca. Michael's jaw tightened. You sound cruel, not concerned. Grace whispered, she sounds jealous. Rebecca slammed the glass down. You'll all regret this. When Mom collapses, don't come crying to me. She stormed out again. This time, no one followed. Later that night, Frank said quietly, she's lost them. Every bridge she built, she burned tonight. I exhaled slowly, feeling the shift. Rebecca wasn't the authority anymore. She was the outcast. And now the path was clear. It was time to reclaim my place. Fully, finally. It happened on a Thursday evening. The sky was heavy with rain, the kind that makes everything feel charged. Rebecca called, demanding a meeting. I'm coming over, she said flatly. No more games. Frank wanted to refuse, but I shook my head. Let her come. This ends tonight. When she arrived, her hair was damp from the storm, her expression sharp as glass. She didn't sit. She stood in the middle of the living room, fists clenched. You've poisoned them against me, she snapped. I stayed calm. No, Rebecca, you revealed yourself. Her voice rose. Do you think they'll always side with you? Do you think Grace's little speeches change reality? You're slipping, Mom, and when you fall, I'll be the one they call. Frank stood. That's enough. But I raised a hand, stopping him. My eyes locked on hers. Rebecca, you've spent months trying to make me small, but tonight you'll hear me. She smirked. Go ahead. I walked slowly to the cabinet, pulled out the folder I'd prepared. Documents, statements, Pastor Mark's letter, Carol's proof from the utility office. I dropped it on the coffee table with a thud. This is what you've done. Forging notes, tampering with bills, lying about doors and ovens. You didn't catch mistakes, you created them. Her face blanched. That's not... Don't bother denying it, I cut in, because they already know. Anna, Michael, even Frank, and Grace, she saw everything you tried to twist. Grace stepped out from the hallway then, clutching her notebook. I wrote it all down, Aunt Rebecca. Every time Grandma checked the locks, every time you lied. Rebecca's voice cracked. You're a child. They'll believe me over you. But Michael's voice came from behind her. He had entered quietly, Anna with him. Not anymore, Becca. We've had enough. Rebecca spun, eyes wild. You're all blind. She is failing. You just don't want to see it. No, Frank said firmly. The only one failing here is you. The room went silent, the storm outside rattling the windows. I took a step closer. Rebecca, I loved you the moment you were placed in my arms. I defended you when you made mistakes. I forgave you when you were cruel. But I will not forgive this, trying to erase me while I'm still here. Her lips trembled, but no words came. You wanted control, I said softly, steel in my voice. But what you lost was trust, and without that, you have nothing. Tears welled in her eyes, though her jaw stayed tight. You'll regret this, she whispered. No, I replied, you will. She turned, grabbed her coat, and fled into the storm. The door slammed, the thunder followed, and in the silence that remained, I knew the battle was over. The morning after the storm, the house was still. I sat at the kitchen table, a cup of coffee warming my hands. For the first time in months, I felt peace. Frank came in, rested a hand on my shoulder. It's done, Linda. She showed her true colors. I nodded. Yes, but the wound she left will take time to heal. Later that week, Anna visited. She brought a basket of muffins, her smile soft but steady. Mom, she said, sitting across from me, I'm sorry I didn't speak up sooner. I thought staying quiet would keep the peace, but all it did was let Rebecca grow bolder. I reached for her hand. You found your voice when it mattered. That's enough. Tears shimmered in her eyes. I won't let her do this again. Michael came next. He was quieter, guilt heavy on his face. Mom, he said, I wanted to believe Rebecca. She sounded so convincing, but seeing the truth, I feel like I failed you. I shook my head. You didn't fail me. You opened your eyes. That's what matters now. He exhaled, shoulders loosening for the first time in weeks. She won't get away with it again. I'll make sure of it. Grace, though, was the one who made me smile again. She bounded into the room, notebook in hand. Grandma, she said proudly, I told my teacher what happened. She said I was brave. I hugged her tight. You saved me, Grace. You spoke when no one else dared. That's courage. She grinned. I'll always be your witness. As for Rebecca, she stayed away. Word spread through the family. She was bitter, blaming everyone but herself. A few cousins tried to defend her at first, but when they heard the evidence, they stopped. The calls grew fewer, the visits ended. Rebecca had isolated herself. And I? I reclaimed my place. Bills back in my name. Sunday dinners at my table again. My voice restored in the home I built. One evening, Frank raised his glass. To Linda, the heart of this family. Everyone clinked their glasses, even Grace with her apple juice. I felt the strength return, not just to my body, but to my spirit. Rebecca had tried to erase me. Instead, she erased herself. That Sunday evening, I stood at the head of the dining table. The roast beef was gone, the plates were messy, but the laughter lingered. My family, Frank, Anna, Michael, and sweet Grace sat around me, their faces warm again. For months, Rebecca had tried to rewrite who I was. She wanted to turn me into a shadow, someone fragile, someone fading. But the truth is simple. I'm still here. I cleared my throat. The room quieted. I want you all to remember something, I said. Families survive storms, but only if we see the storm for what it is. Lies don't protect us. Silence doesn't save us. And trust is worth more than any document or accusation. Grace leaned forward, chin in her hands, like when I told the truth about the oven. Exactly, I said, smiling at her. One honest voice can change everything. Frank raised his glass again. To Linda, the one who refused to disappear. They all echoed, to Linda. And in that moment, I felt whole again. Rebecca hasn't called since. Maybe one day she'll face what she's done. Maybe she won't. But I can't live waiting for that day. What matters is this. I didn't let her break me. And if you're listening now, if you've ever been pushed aside, doubted, or silenced, remember my story. Stand your ground. Gather your truth. Don't let anyone write you out of your own life. Because sometimes the greatest revenge isn't shouting, it's simply surviving stronger. Thank you for listening to my story. If it touched you, if it made you think of your own family, I'd love to hear from you. Share your story in the comments, and if you want more tales like mine, of betrayal, resilience, and justice, make sure you subscribe to Revenge Stories with